Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, and I am here at Supply Chain Point 2025, and I am joined by Emily Kelly, who's the Director of Operations over at Zenni Optical, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about Zenni's operations and also a little bit about what she's seeing in the market, particularly around small parcel rates, and also hear a little bit about what she thinks about the event here. So, Emily, how's it going?
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me. It's going well. It's been a fun show. A lot of events.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, I guess first tell us, what is Zenni Optical for people that are not familiar?
Zenni Optical is affordable eyewear for everyone. So it is a over 22-year-old online frames company where you can get your prescription eyewear at a very affordable rate shipped directly to you. You can get sunglasses, readers, whatever flavor of glasses you need.
Oh, flavors. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've never tasted my glasses before, but yeah, that sounds good. And tell us about your role. You're Director of Operations there, right?
Yeah, so I'm Senior Director of Operations overseeing the contact lens business, which is something that's really new to Zenni, but it made sense to go into a new channel when you're selling frames. Most people are either also wearing contacts, or if you wear contacts, you definitely wear glasses. So there's a lot of dual wearership conversation to be had there. So it's just sort of a nice add-on product, but the first time that Zenni's gone into a business outside of glasses and in the whole time it's been around.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's kind of an interesting business model, right? Because even though you have probably set frame styles, there's still customization because prescription and things like that. So tell us about how do you run those operations, and like what does the supply chain for glasses look like?
So currently the glasses supply chain is very different than the contact lens supply chain, interestingly. But we we do own our own manufacturing in China, so we're able to source frames, lenses, and make finished goods there to then import to the US, as well as we do ship to other countries. And then we have two facilities domestically, one in the Bay Area and one in Obitz, Ohio, which is actually, there's a lot of optical activity in Obitz, Ohio area. There's various lens labs there. But we are lucky to have our own two buildings domestically to be able to either finish product in Ohio or just break down and ship to the end user or the customer. And then in terms of the contact lens supply chain, very different. There are so many SKU possibilities because of the various brands and manufacturers and prescription parameters within contact lenses that we just drop ship those for the time being. So we're working with a distributor to fulfill those orders. So for now, frames and contacts ship completely separate.
Interesting. And I'm curious on the contact side because frames, like I wear glasses, right? And I've had these frames for I guess like 2 years now, and the last ones I think I had for like maybe 10, right? Because they fell in the bottom of the river. I told you that earlier.
Right.
So I had to get new frames, but for contacts, like they don't last that long, right? So how do you kind of operate around that notion, knowing that people are going to need like personal replenishments of contacts? How do you forecast that, because they're tailored to the individual, right?
Right. Yeah. So with contacts, you do have to verify prescriptions, which is a little different than frames. Hopefully, if you wore the same frames for 10 years, you did at some point go and at least get your eyes checked. And
I did not.
Oh, no. Well, you got to get those eyes checked every year or 2 years to make sure that you're still in the right prescription. But with contacts in the United States, you actually have to verify the prescription. So with frames, we can mostly trust that what you order is what you need. With contacts, you absolutely can't do that. You have to call the optometrist's office and say, hey, Dr. Smith, Kevin wants to order XYZ contact lens brand and manufacturer in ABC parameters. Are we allowed to fulfill this order? And then you have to give them the chance to let you know yay or nay before fulfilling the product. So that's just one thing that adds some lead time and is something a lot of people don't realize in the United States, the difference of the class 1 versus class 2 medical device. But contacts is definitely a sticky product where people are going to need replenishment. I mean, it's perfect to kind of have on a set it and forget it refill model. But I do think that subscriptions almost become a bad word lately. People are like, oh, I hate a subscription. And so we're kind of weighing that, is it worth doing all the tech infrastructure that's needed to get people on a subscription or just allowing for one-time purchases? But I think contacts are also a product where people really price hop. Just to be totally honest. So people are interested in who's just going to sell me online the cheapest possible price. So from my experience, I think that it's possible to grow a loyal customer base if you're doing the right things with things like a loyalty program and add-on items that people find beneficial. But it can be a challenging market to get people back because they're going to maybe go rate shop around if you're not sort of incentivizing in other ways to stay as a loyal customer. But we do see high return rates on that's probably the wrong word. We see high retention rates with customers coming back for additional frames. Okay. So typically if you buy one pair and you're like, oh, it's great quality, I love these, and they were affordable, people then come back and buy for their whole family. So we're selling the same household 5 to 10 pairs of frames. So to know that contacts are always there for anyone in the same household is a nice add-on item. Come back and get it when you need it. No pressure to subscribe for now. I think it's just a nice business model add-on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting to look at that model and kind of see, even though they're doing the same thing, glasses and contacts, it sounds like there's some stark differences there in how you kind of approach that and operate around that. So tell us a little bit, because you're importing stuff, right? And,
right.
And there's been some things going on about importing, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
So tell us a little bit about how you're navigating that, and you're doing a lot of small parcel, I imagine, with glasses, right? So and contacts as well. So tell us a little bit about what's your strategy right now, and what kind of advice do you have?
Well, knock on wood, right now, contacts have not been super impacted by tariffs. So holding my breath on that sticks. Obviously, the frames that we source from China are a much different story. There's been a lot of people losing sleep, a lot of back and forth and up and down. I think, what we're doing is really all we can. We are making sure we control costs in other areas. We have not increased cost to the consumer yet. That would be an absolute last resort. Our hope is that we can kind of ride it out and hopefully don't end up reaching that point.
Yeah.
But because that's we really pride ourselves on being affordable eyewear for everybody. And I think having to do that would be just, the absolute last thing we want to do. Right. So controlling costs in other areas, making sure we're following the news cycle. So we know, okay, today it's this, tomorrow it's that. Trying to predict the future a little bit. And then also, I think looking at longer term strategy for, okay, if this is going to be a volatile situation for a while, what can we do about maybe nearshoring or getting creative with other areas to potentially build a frames lab? So that's kind of all we can do. We're definitely a company that's strongly based in China right now. So we haven't had a ton of ways to be nimble, but we are lucky to have the finishing lab in Ohio. So we can actually do lenses and frames there. And then, looking around is pretty much what we're doing.
Yeah. Interesting. And so what would be, what advice would you give to somebody that's like trying to figure this out? Like maybe they're a newer company and now they're, getting hit with this and they're like, oh my God, maybe they're in a similar position, whether in China or somewhere else overseas. Like what advice would you give them?
I think de-risking China has been a hot topic in supply chain for a while. Yeah. It's not new. I think if you can de-risk from China, de-risk from having just one source in general. We're unique in that we own our supply chain, but if you're just sourcing product, I would say do it from multiple countries if you are able to, because then you always have another one to call or lean on. That's always been my approach, is like an ABC methodology of like, we can't have all of our eggs in A. We need to ideally try to de-risk and diversify the supply chain. That's really my best advice. And honestly, a little bug.
We had a guest.
What I've been doing for probably the last, 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's great advice too, because I think you used the word volatile before, and I think that's a great way to define it, because it is like one day is this and one day is this, or one morning is this, one afternoon is this.
Right.
It's changing so much, so it's hard to make a big time decision, and then that big time decision ends up being the wrong one potentially, right? So how do you kind of balance that and have some contingencies in place, right? So now you deal a lot with kind of the logistics side and the small parcel and things like that. So tell us a little bit about how you're navigating that right now, because there's some changes going on there too as well, right?
Right.
You're seeing more like we were at Home Delivery World together. I mean, there's obviously more regional players that are coming up as well, and more startups that are focused on this type of thing. So what's your perspective on that market?
Yeah, so because frames are a pretty lightweight product, and most contacts are too, you can get bigger boxes and higher quantities of contacts that cross that threshold of a pound, but a lot of our shipments are under a pound. So we've always utilized the small parcel network with those killer rates that now no longer really exist with everything that's been shaken up in the parcel community. So we're kind of getting hammered from both sides, with the outbound small parcel going away and then the inbound tariffs that we have to worry about. I do see a lot more regional carriers in this space. I think that was one of the really cool things coming out of home delivery world, is just having a better sense of who's out here, how people are leveraging their volume with different carriers to potentially still take advantage of some small parcel rates. And that's definitely what we're looking at. I think that in the past, it's really been kind of a single carrier solution to utilize your volume to have the best possible rates. And now that those best possible rates are going away anyway, it's like, how do we get creative with having two facilities, Ohio and Bay Area, with all of these regional players in the space to say, okay, we can potentially, and we're fortunate to be large enough volume that we can potentially move some things around and still have a high enough volume to leverage some discounts. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, not something that you can sleep on at all. There's really no set it and forget it with shipping carriers anymore. And I feel like when you need one, it's kind of too late to be talking to them. So my advice there is, like, keep those relationships going. If you ever can do a backup implementation with somebody to have someone else to route volume to, it's definitely worth the time and the investment, in my opinion.
Yeah. So you mentioned there that traditionally it's been kind of like, keep all the volume with one player, and then you can play on that from a discount, right? But that's kind of going away. So how do you look at, like, what's your view on kind of diversifying a little more, right? Instead of like putting all that volume on one player, like now tapping into maybe 2 players or 3 players or maybe even more. Like how do you kind of come up with a strategy to diversify a little more?
I mean, I think that being able to kind of do those initial sorts between the Bay Area and the Ohio facility is definitely helpful for us to be able to talk to a few players at once, and then talk to who has, the best line haul from Obitz, Ohio to where the population is. So maybe Florida, or who's got the fastest, best possible route to Texas, because obviously volume in any e-com tends to follow population. So you sort of know, like, where your common ship to locations are going to be and where it makes sense to pull it into, whether it's that Bay Area facility or Ohio. So we're kind of nice to have that flexibility, not be pigeonholed into one location, which sort of helps us get that initial pre-sort on it ourselves. And then looking at maybe sorting it even further is definitely something that plays well with all of the regionals going on, because it could be like, these zip codes need to go here, these zip codes need to go there. But definitely, to your point, diversification of the carriers. I think no longer having just one. I mean, we did that for a long time. And I say we as the kind of the e-com community, I feel like it was pretty common to be like, we ship with UPS, we ship with FedEx. And I think now it's going to become a lot more common to say, like, hey, we're shipping with 5 different carriers, and that's where we need to get comfortable being.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, because I think, like e-com, right? I mean, you have this point where you're like really scaling, right? And volume is just growing, and trying to keep up with that and also manage multiple carriers. I think it's traditionally been difficult, right, to do that. But now, because some of these challenges, I think people are looking to see, like, how can they save money in any way they can, right? Because the stuff we talked about earlier. So it's really interesting perspective there. So we're here at Supply Chain Point, right? So I got to ask you, this is your first time here, right?
It is, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the event and what you think.
I think it's a really unique event. I had a really great time. I think it is much more intimate and curated than a lot of shows. You really get the chance to network and know people. And it's nice in that it's then not a sales pitch the whole time. You're getting to actually just forge relationships. And my takeaway is that I've learned solutions to problems I didn't even know you could have, which
Really?
is awesome though, because I feel like now I kind of have this whole Rolodex of like things to consider for areas of potential improvement, areas of potential savings, and all of the vendors that are able to support with that. So I've really enjoyed it. I think it's an awesome show.
Interesting. That's great to hear, definitely. And is there like one thing that stands out to you that you learned about here?
This is a funny one, but I've heard a lot of people saying it, so I don't think it's just me. But the Duraserve Corporation doing the dock doors that are super flexible. I don't think you
Somebody else was telling me about it this morning too. Yeah.
I don't think you think about the minutia, and it totally makes sense. Hey, if you hit a dock door and it's out of commission for 3 days, that can really mess up your capacity, your pickups. Definitely might not be doing it in the most cost-effective way if you are constantly paying for repairs. So seeing their flexible material and how you can like literally drive a car into it, I thought that was really cool. And I think that's kind of the name of the game, is that I'm seeing things that I would have never really thought about, but it's giving you all new areas to maybe consider improving your facilities.
Interesting. Yeah. And I love that you refer to it as like you built kind of this Rolodex of solutions now, right? So it's kind of like, well, if something comes up, then it's like, oh, I remember that from Supply Chain Point, right? And write a little bit more about them. And somebody else said the same thing to me about those doors too. They're like, oh, they played this video where somebody just drove their car into the door and it was fine, right? And it is such like an underlooked thing within an operation, right? But it happens all the time. I mean, I know from my experience, I replaced a lot of panels, and that would have certainly been helpful and helped to prevent that. So really appreciate you coming and sitting with me here and talking a little bit about the industry and Supply Chain Point itself. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, the New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.